All right, let's dive into Glucose Revolution by Jesse and Chopé. We're going to break down the science and results, especially for those of you interested in how managing glucose can impact your overall well-being.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area.
Absolutely.
And the book is super relevant, too.
Definitely. It taps into this growing interest in continuous glucose monitoring.
Oh, yeah. People are realizing that it's, not just for diabetes management.
Right. It's like this tool for optimizing, just your general health.
Absolutely.
So Jessie and Chospe, the author, she's a biochemist. She's really dove deep into this world herself, literally using a continuous glucose monitor.
Oh, wow.
And discovered all these surprising things about how glucose impacts, her own health.
Interesting. So what are some of the key takeaways for people who, might not be familiar with the book?
Oh, one of the big things is that it's not just about diabetes.
Okay.
Everyone experiences glucose spikes after eating. But it's those spikes, especially if they're sharp and frequent, that can really cause problems.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about the presence of glucose, but it's about, the rapid fluctuations.
Exactly. Like when we eat, our bodies break down carbs into glucose.
Right. Our primary energy source.
Exactly. But then those sudden surges, they can lead to all sorts of issues like cravings, energy crashes, even long-term risks for things like heart disease and faster aging.
Wow. So like a cascade of negative effects from those spikes.
Pretty much. It's wild how something we don't really think about that much, our glucose levels, can have such a huge impact on so many different aspects of our health.
It's like a hidden factor that plays into, everything.
Totally. And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
Jessie, she actually stumbled upon this connection while she was working at 23andMe, the genetics company.
Oh, yeah.
She was experiencing, energy slumps and brain fog.
Ugh, I hate those.
And she decided to use a CGM to track her glucose levels. And guess what?
What?
There was a direct correlation.
No way.
Between those dips in her well-being and the fluctuations in her glucose.
So even though on paper she was healthy,
Yeah.
she was still experiencing these issues.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there's so much going on beneath the surface.
Probably.
Right? And even small imbalances can really affect how we feel.
So before we dive into all the ways to manage glucose and stuff, can we back up a bit?
Sure.
For anyone who might not be totally up on the basics, what exactly is glucose and why is it so crucial?
Yeah, so think of glucose as the fundamental fuel.
Okay.
For pretty much all living things.
Wow. So plants, animals, everything.
Pretty much. Plants make it through photosynthesis,
Right.
that process where they use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into energy.
Right.
We get it by eating those plants or animals that have eaten those plants.
Gotcha. So we're getting it indirectly.
Exactly. It's like this building block of life.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
I know. I remember learning about this experiment back in school. Jan Baptista van Helmont.
Okay.
He did this thing with a willow tree.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, he proved that its mass came from air and water, not just from the soil.
Right, which was revolutionary at the time.
Right. It was a huge deal. And that's essentially glucose at work. It's how plants convert those simple elements into complex molecules that make up, their structure.
So we're tapping into that same process.
Exactly. To fuel our own bodies.
Cool. So Glucose Revolution isn't just about the science of glucose, right?
Yeah, not at all.
It's about how to manage it for better health.
Exactly.
And the book really emphasizes this idea of flattening the curve. What does that actually mean? Are we talking about giving up all the foods we enjoy?
No, not at all. This isn't about deprivation.
Okay, good.
It's about understanding how different foods affect our glucose response. And then using simple, practical strategies.
Okay.
Jesse calls them hacks to manage those spikes.
I like that, hacks. So less about a strict diet and more about a lifestyle shift based on, real science.
And the book is packed with real life examples of people who have made these changes and seen incredible results.
Give me an example.
Okay, so there's this woman, Bernadette. She struggled with weight gain and fatigue during menopause.
Okay.
And simply changing the order in which she ate her meals, veggies first, then protein and fats, then starches, made a huge difference.
Oh, wow. Just from changing the order.
Yeah. She lost weight, had more energy, felt better overall.
So these aren't just theories.
No.
They're real-world outcomes.
Exactly. That's what I find so compelling about this approach. It's grounded in solid research, but it also offers these practical solutions that people can actually integrate into their lives.
All right, so let's talk about those hacks. What are some of the key takeaways that people can start implementing today?
Okay, so one of the simplest but most effective hacks is all about the order in which you eat your food.
Okay, so what I eat matters, but also when I eat it.
Yeah, it sounds almost too good to be true, but eating the same foods in a different order can dramatically impact your glucose response.
I mean, that's kind of wild.
I know, right? But the science behind it makes sense. Think about it this way. The order in which food enters your digestive system affects how quickly those carbs are broken down into glucose.
Oh.
And absorbed into your bloodstream.
So if you can control that order.
Yes, you can control those glucose spikes.
So what's the magic formula? What should I be eating first?
It's actually quite straightforward. Veggies first,
okay.
Then protein and fats.
Got it.
And finally, starches and sugars last.
Interesting. So why start with veggies?
So vegetables are packed with fiber.
Right.
And fiber acts like this, like protective shield in your intestines. It slows down the absorption of glucose from other foods.
Oh, cool. Like putting a speed bump on the glucose highway.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
So you're preventing those big spikes.
Right. Those sharp, sudden glucose spikes that can lead to all those issues,
Okay, that makes sense. So where do the protein and fats fit in?
Well, they play a role in slowing down digestion, too.
Okay.
Plus, they help you feel fuller for longer.
Oh, nice.
Which can really help prevent those cravings from kicking in.
That's a huge plus. So then by the time you get to the starches and sugars,
yeah,
their impact is way less.
Exactly, because of that fiber and protein buffer you've already created.
Exactly. It's amazing how such a simple tweak can make such a big difference.
Right. And it's not just about the order of food groups within a meal.
Okay.
The book also talks about starting the day with a savory breakfast.
Oh, interesting. Ditching the sugary cereal.
Exactly, because a lot of traditional breakfast options are loaded with sugar.
Yeah, true.
And that sets you up for this glucose roller coaster right from the start.
Makes sense. So what are some good savory breakfast options?
Eggs, avocado, nuts, full-fat yogurt, even leftovers from dinner.
Oh, that's smart.
Starting your day with protein and fats helps stabilize those morning glucose levels.
Yeah.
And then it sets you up for balanced energy throughout the day.
Okay, so it's a big shift from what, a lot of us are used to, but
yeah,
it makes sense when you understand the science behind it.
Totally. And speaking of, unexpected glucose hacks, the book talks about vinegar.
Vinegar. Really?
Yeah, is there science behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. Research shows that consuming vinegar, particularly apple cider vinegar, before a meal can significantly reduce those glucose spikes.
Interesting. How did that work?
So vinegar contains acetic acid.
Okay.
And that has been shown to slow down the digestion of starches.
Oh, interesting.
So less glucose is released into your bloodstream.
So the vinegar is like putting the brakes on.
Yeah, giving your body more time to process everything smoothly.
I love that. And there's even this story in the book about Manaz's mother, who was actually able to reverse her type 2 diabetes.
Wow, just from vinegar?
Well, from incorporating several of the hacks from the book, including the vinegar.
It's incredible.
It's amazing what, small changes can do. The book also highlights the importance of exercise after meals.
Oh, interesting. Why after meals specifically?
Well, when you exercise, even moderately, like going for a brisk walk, your muscles use up glucose for energy.
Right.
Without needing to rely on insulin.
So it's helping your body clear out that excess glucose.
Exactly.
Smart. And how much exercise are we talking about? Do I have to hit the gym after every meal?
Not necessarily. Even just a 10-minute walk can make a difference.
Oh, okay. That's doable.
And of course, longer or more intense workouts would offer even greater benefits.
Makes sense. What if, I can't squeeze in a workout? What else can I do?
Well, one of the key strategies in the book is this idea of putting clothes on your carbs.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What does that even mean?
It's a catchy way of saying that you should combine your carbs with protein, fat, or fiber to slow down their absorption.
Ah, so it's instead of eating a piece of fruit by itself,
right,
I should pair it with some nuts.
Exactly. Or if you're having rice, add some beans or lentils.
Got it. So I'm creating those glucose buffers we talked about earlier.
Right. And the book has this great success story about Lucy. She's a young woman with type 1 diabetes who saw amazing improvements in her glucose control just by using this strategy.
Wow. That's really powerful.
I know. It's amazing how these small adjustments can have such a huge impact. Now, I'm curious about sweeteners. Are all sweeteners created equal when it comes to glucose management?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. Not all sweeteners are created equal. Some can still trigger a glucose response.
So even if something says sugar-free, it doesn't necessarily mean it won't spike your glucose levels.
Exactly. Some sweeteners like agave, honey, maple syrup, and even some sugar alcohols, they can still contribute to those unwanted spikes.
So it's not just about avoiding table sugar.
Right.
It's about understanding the impact of different types of sweeteners.
Glucose Revolution really breaks down the pros and cons of all the different types.
Oh, that's good to know.
And it helps you figure out which ones are best for, keeping your glucose stable.
Okay, this is all great information. But what about when those, intense cravings hit?
Right.
How can you manage those without, throwing off your glucose balance?
Well, when your glucose levels spike and then plummet, your body kind of freaks out.
Okay.
It sends out signals of hunger and cravings, often for more sugary or high-carb foods, as a way to quickly replenish those glucose levels.
So it's like a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
So those intense sugar cravings, it's not just a sign of weakness, it's actually a physiological response.
It's your body trying to fix the problem, but in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what are some strategies for, managing those cravings?
One thing you can try is to give a craving a 20-minute cooling off period.
Okay.
Often this allows enough time for your liver to release stored glucose, which can cause the craving to dissipate naturally.
So instead of immediately reaching for that cookie,
Yeah.
set a timer for 20 minutes.
Exactly.
See what happens.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Another thing you can do is make sure you're eating enough protein and fiber throughout the day.
Right, to stay full.
Exactly. It helps prevent those dramatic drops in glucose that trigger cravings. It's all about making choices that support stable glucose levels.
The book also talks about becoming a savvy label reader, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not just about counting calories anymore. It's about understanding how different foods impact your glucose levels. And Glucose Revolution has this really great guide to, deciphering food labels.
Oh, cool. So you can make informed choices about what you're buying.
Exactly. Become a sugar sleuth.
Love it. What should people be looking for?
Well, first of all, manufacturers use all sorts of sneaky names for sugar.
Yeah, no, it's so tricky.
So you really got to scan that ingredients list. Look for things like corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, glucose, maltose, sucrose. The list goes on.
So many different names.
And the higher up sugar appears on the list, the greater the proportion of sugar in that product.
So it's really about being aware
Yeah.
of those hidden sugars.
Yeah.
And then making informed choices.
And definitely pay attention to the total carbohydrate content and the grams of sugar listed.
Okay.
That gives you a much clearer picture of how much sugar you're actually getting.
So it's about empowering people to make better choices.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot so far, from the science of glucose to the potential downsides of those spikes, and then a whole range of practical hacks for flattening the curve.
It's been a great overview.
It's amazing how, simple changes like adding a green starter to your meal, taking that post-meal walk, or just being mindful of sweeteners can make a world of difference.
Simple changes. Big impact.
And what's remarkable is that all of these strategies are backed by scientific research and real-world results.
Yeah, that's key. It's got to be evidence-based.
Absolutely. But, I'm curious, what about those times when, those cravings hit really hard?
Right.
Or you're in a social situation and you don't have control over the menu.
It's real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you navigate those challenges without, totally derailing your progress?
That's a great question. And luckily, Glucose Revolution has got us covered.
Oh, good idea.
We'll dive into all that next time. It does. It really does. Life doesn't always happen in this, perfectly controlled environment.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with those, inevitable curveballs, like birthday parties, holidays, or just, those days when you're, craving something a little extra?
Well, Glucose Revolution anticipates those situations.
Oh, good.
And it offers some really practical tips for, how to stay on track.
Okay, that's good to hear. So, what if you're out to dinner with friends and that, irresistible dessert tray rolls around? What's the advice there?
Remember that food order hack we talked about?
Uh-huh.
That's your secret weapon.
Okay.
Even when you're not, in charge of the menu.
Right.
Prioritize those veggies, the protein, and the healthy fats first.
So you have that buffer.
Exactly. Before diving into the sweeter stuff.
Smart.
Yeah.
Now, what about alcohol? How does that fit into, the whole glucose equation?
It can be a bit tricky.
Okay.
Different types of alcohol have different effects.
Oh, okay.
Dry wines, they tend to have, a minimal impact. But sweet cocktails and beers, they can cause those spikes.
So it's about being mindful of your choices.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe opt for like a drier option,
Mhm.
or just, enjoy those sweeter drinks in moderation.
Right. It's about making choices that align with, your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, what about those times when, despite our best efforts, we slip up?
Happens to the best of us.
Glucose revolution, it emphasizes self-compassion, right?
Big time.
It's okay to indulge occasionally.
Totally.
It's more important to, learn from those experiences
Yeah.
and just get back on track.
Exactly. Without, beating yourself up about it.
Yeah, I think that's such a refreshing perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about, restriction or punishment.
No. It's
So-
about,
so we-
enjoying your life.
Yeah,
And making, changes that you can actually stick with.
right.
Mhm.
Sustainable changes.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us to the heart of glucose revolution. It's not just about, managing your glucose. It's about feeling your best.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. It's about, tuning into your body.
Yeah.
Understanding how those food choices affect you, and then making decisions that, support your overall well-being.
And I love that it gives you those, concrete steps to start making changes.
Totally.
Like today.
Right now.
Yeah. Whether it's adding that green starter or taking that post-meal walk or just being more mindful of sweeteners. There's something everyone can do.
It's so empowering.
It is. Glucose revolution doesn't just present the science,
Right.
It actually translates it into this practical advice
Yeah. Actionable stuff.
that can really make a difference.
I love that.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. What's one small change you can make today
Yeah.
to start flattening your glucose curve and reclaim your health?
It can be anything.
Yeah, because even, small adjustments can have this ripple effect
They totally can.
over time.
Yeah.
You have the power to really take control of your well-being
Starting right now.
starting right now.
I love it.
Until next time, deep divers, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay well.